All right, folks. So, sometimes I have the privilege of catching up with people that I respect a lot. And then other times I have the privilege of catching up with multiple people I respect a lot all at the same time. And so today's sort of one of those days. So, me and these two characters have a bit of a history, and some would say a bit of a reputation. Sometimes that's good news, and sometimes that's not that's bad news. And so, things like me and Kinsley have before sashayed through a cocktail party, handing out small cups of ice cream to people, and not to mention some of the antics from both Quinn and Kinsley from time to time. These two characters are I would say probably two of the most famous people in the bedding and furniture industry, and two people that I really looked up to as I was playing in that industry for a time. And so today we get to talk about them for a couple of reasons. Number one, because I love them and respect them, and then the other reason is they have a book coming out on December the 8th, and I was supposed to have my book come out on December the 9th. And so when Mark told me that it was December the 8th, I decided to move my launch up to December the 1st. Because I was not going to let them break the internet and ruin my book launch. So mine will be out December the 1st. Theirs December the 8th. So welcome, Dos Marcos, Mark Quinn, and Mark Kinsley. What's up, guys?
What's up, my brother? It's great to be
What's up,
here.
Doug?
What an
Yeah.
intro, man. I forgot about that time when we were down south and we went to the store and we grabbed Bluebell ice cream and we went back and passed it out to a bunch of people that were probably about 4 or 5 drinks deep at that point. And the ice cream came at a moment when I almost felt like they needed it.
They really, some of them really needed it.
The people that turned it down were the ones that cracked me up the most, though. Like some people were like, no, I don't want ice cream. But the people that wanted it, they were coming at us at a high rate of speed.
High rate.
Can I just add something to that? So some of the people that we were giving the ice cream to were 4 or 5 drinks into it. How about you two? I was there that night. I think everybody, including you two, were 4 or 5 drinks into that night.
Wait,
That was a great night. People loved the ice cream.
4 or 5
No, I'm
drinks deep for
complimenting.
me? I mean, that's a
Okay,
light night.
so I think I turned it down because I didn't want my old fashioned to mix with cream. I didn't think that was a good idea.
You never had an old fashioned float? Those are the key. All right, so here's how this started, though. This was the thing. This really speaks to, I think, the spirit of the both of you. Is this started because me and Kinsley were having a conversation with Jake Neely from Maloof, and Jake he didn't know what Bluebell ice cream was, and me and Mark looked at each other and was like, "That's unacceptable to be in a relationship with us." And so we got in a car and we drove to the closest, I think it was like a Harris Teeter. And we walked in and all they had were the little cups that they sold in like by a dozen. And so we we end up getting like, I don't know, 10 packs of this. We bought coolers. And then we went out in the parking lot. We gave Jake his first taste of Bluebell. And then we were like, let's go make this party a party. And, we could have just bought like 1 cup of ice cream and let Jake taste it, but that was unacceptable for the level of strategery that Mark Kinsley typically rolls with.
How would you describe Jake's face whenever he took that first bite of ice cream? Was he really floating away to a different place, or was he like, oh, that's okay?
No, I think he clearly recognized that he had not yet been born into the world of sweet, delectable desserts.
I think that's accurate. He lives in Utah, and I'm sure they have their local favorites. Just like some places have custard, but if you're in the South, you've got to have Bluebell. You got to have it.
This was during the Bluebell Listeria crisis, right? Where they had like the stuff and they had shut down. And I remember Jake being like, I don't know, man, like there's been some bad press. And we're like, bro, it's worth it. The threat of Listeria is worth it. You just got to try it. He trusts us. So
we were sitting there going, and you eat yours first, but because we want to watch you eating it, not because we're worried we're going to get sick.
We're cool. We've tasted it. So you taste it. It's like he was like the cupbearer from like the ancient times. Like, you taste it first and let's see what happens to you. But he's good. I saw him online just the other day, and he's relatively healthy still, I think.
He can fog a mirror. He's good.
One of my favorite ad taglines of all time: "We eat all we can, and we sell the rest."
Oh, I love that.
Bluebell.
That was
Yeah, that was
Bluebell?
Bluebell. Hmm.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Oh, yeah, we have a consistent flow of Bluebell ice cream in our home. And so, yeah. Right now we are in the Christmas spirit in with peppermint as a flavor.
I'm in a Bluebell recovery program. Yeah, we meet Thursdays. I can't. I eat it all the time. I can't even have it in my house anymore.
You know, I would join you in that, Quinn, but I'm not a quitter. So I'm just gonna stay, I'm gonna stay the course.
You have more discipline than I do. That's why.
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
It's all about bearing down and getting through the hard times. So
If there's ever a year to eat ice cream, this would be the year to eat some ice cream.
100%.
Isn't that
You know,
the truth?
that comforting moment when you step away with your carton and you just down half of it or more. This is the year to do it, 2020.
And only full gallons, man. Like I was actually writing an article yesterday, and I was thinking of things that, like, what are some of the things that like really help you, like, in a healthy way, get from like where we've been to where ultimately we want to go. And I was thinking about this for myself, and I was like, okay, so it's like people who have earned the right for you to trust them, that you're in deep relationships with. Like, therapy has been something for me. Like, sometimes medication has been something for me, like writing, journaling, getting my thoughts on paper on purpose. And then there were two other things that I couldn't not put down. It was Oreos and Bluebell ice cream. Like, sometimes you just have to like do what you've got to do to get to get through it.
And on a really tough day, you mix them together.
Natural vanilla bean with crushed up peanut butter Oreos is the absolute jam. Like,
Peanut butter Oreos, next level.
they're a new discovery. So there's the regular double stuffed, which is the only way, and then there is the peanut butter Oreo. And then if you really want to get in the Christmas spirit, there is a gingerbread Oreo that if you crush that up in the natural vanilla bean, only natural vanilla bean, it is a life-changing experience. It'll change your day.
I'm in on that. I need to do this experiment and circle back with you. And just like Jake Neely standing there in the parking lot of the Publix or the Harris Teeter, whichever it was, I need to film my reaction eating that for the first time, like our dear Jake.
100%. 1,000%. So, okay. So speaking of things that have, that we use to get us through hard times, you guys are just coming on the other side of something that's been really, a real process, and something that a lot of people aspire to do. And for me, I aspired to do this for, I don't know, a decade, which was not only right, because a lot of people are writing a book. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that are like, I'm writing a book, but very few of those people say, I've published a book, and they can hold it in their hands. And you guys get to do that very, very soon. Let's talk about the book. Start by talking about why the book, and then, you guys have done so many projects together and worked together so much. What caused you to want to do it together?
Can I lead us off, Quinn, here?
Please do, for sure.
Well, we have worked together for many, many years. And when we were at Leggett & Platt, we started a podcast about the mattress industry. And Quinn, what did you say to me whenever I said, we should do a podcast because we want to have a voice in the industry and we want to have a voice at retail? And you said, about what? And I said, about the mattress industry. What was your response?
I said, who the hell is going to listen to a podcast about the mattress industry? I was already writing a blog, and I'm like, we're not doing a podcast. And he's like, yes, we got to do it. I'm a radio background. So I went in kicking and screaming, and 185 episodes later, here we are.
And so I thought podcasting is like the medium of the modern age. You can do it while you're going for a run or driving your car. And so it's perfect for these people that think we can multitask, and it's great. You can do it in the background. And so, and it's a very one-on-one medium, which is what I love. Like, we're talking to you. I'm talking to you sitting at home or running on the treadmill. And so you get to know people, and we wanted people to know who we were and our heart for the industry. We wanted people to know what Leggett did, now what Spink & Co does, and Sherwood and Englander, and just our ideas about where the industry should go. We didn't want it to be a lame industry. We wanted it to be something that's cool. And so fast forward, like Quinn said, back in February, one of our sponsors is Nationwide Marketing Group. And for those who don't know, it's a big marketing and buying group with over 5,000 independent retailers. And they serve them with all kinds of resources. And one of the things they do is called Prime Time. And they have a huge trade show with all kinds of learning academies and deals and showroom, like thousands of square feet of product and things like that. So we've been speaking at this event for a couple of times, and I had done it back when it was Mega Group before they merged. That's where we met, Doug. And so we give a speech. So we talked to Tom Hickman, who's the president of Nationwide. We said, what's the number one challenge facing your retailers? And we'll try to do a speech that addresses that. And he said, foot traffic. It's always foot traffic. How do they get people to come into their store? We said, great. We're going to give just a stem winder of a speech about driving foot traffic to the store. So we had about 400 people come to our event. And let me paint a picture for you. Quinn, jump in at any moment. So we're giving this speech about driving foot traffic. And one of the things we decided to say was, you have to grab people's attention or they're not going to listen to anything you have to say that's meaningful or important. You know, entertainment has become the natural way to communicate these days. And so Quinn and I had a rap song that we had produced under his leadership at Leggett & Platt. And there's a whole backstory there, but if you go and Google "get hybrid mattress rap," you can see it. And that was like a Super Bowl commercial we built a whole strategy around. So to start our speech, to grab attention and to illustrate the point that we were trying to make, we play that music. We're dressed up in milk white clothes with wrappers gold chains that say Springs and Foam, PHOAM.
Of course.
And we bust out of the back doors, wrapping this thing all the way down the aisles. We've got Mike Whitaker dressed up in a woman's dress, a lady's dress, grandma's dress. We've got a Bigfoot character with his handler led by Beef Jerky out to drop the beat and do the DJing. And we just created this whole spectacle, dance routine, the whole thing. And then that led into grab attention. And then here's how to meaningfully connect with people in your community so you can drive foot traffic. At the end of that, we had everybody in the room with a 3x5 note card. And we said, write down a foot traffic driving idea that actually worked for you. Put your email down, and then whoever submits an idea, we're going to send it out to you. So you're going to have all these foot traffic driving ideas you could take back to your store and implement. So pump the brakes, gave the speech, fantastic engagement. We had about 80 ideas that were submitted at the end of that. COVID hits, shutdowns sweep the country. Quinn and I are on the phone. And I think I said something to the effect of, Quinn, we've been given a gift. It's the gift of time. What are we going to do with it? And we both very quickly got to the idea that we need to write a book. And if foot traffic is the number one challenge facing independent retailers, and we're mattress industry guys, we both have brands. We deal with thousands of retail doors. We want to help them. If that's the number one challenge, let's take all these ideas and let's bake it together and let's write a book filled with principles that can help people drive foot traffic and solve that number one issue. And that was the genesis.
That's amazing. That is okay. So you mentioned that these aren't tactics; these are principles. So can you talk about for a second what would you say is the difference and why principles over tactics?
Well, I'll tee it up. Principles are like ropes. Tactics are like rigid sticks. If you beat a stick against a tree enough times, that stick's going to break. Ropes can be used to tow a truck, to sail a ship, to climb a mountain. And ropes can be used regardless of time and place and in many different situations. They're a lot more useful and dynamic and flexible. And so we wanted something that people could blow the dust off the cover in 10 years, pull this book out, and still make an impact on their business.
So Quinn, from your perspective, so when Kinsley had this bright idea, because he has all sorts of bright ideas that typically put work in your lap, right? So writing a book is not one of those things like, yeah, cool, let's do this. What was your perspective through that process?
Well, it was interesting because we had talked about writing a book many times, actually. But the problem was, Doug, we couldn't ever resolve the idea, right? We had multiple things that we thought were important. There was some history there that we thought was important for people that were coming into the industry to know. But then, like, what is it really about? And after we did that speech, and you got all the ideas from those retailers, and then the realization, our time with Nationwide was really big because these independent retailers out there, like we've all had a benefit for working for these large companies, and we understand how to put strategies together. We understand creative thinking process. We understand all the levers that you can pull to really impact your business. But a lot of people haven't had some of the more formal training that maybe we have, or read some of the same books we have. So we kind of look at ourselves as curators of cool stuff. And, you know, a lot of books written today aren't original thoughts or ideas. A lot of the books today are really a real nice collection of ideas from other people, some original thoughts, but it's really perspective. And so we think we have some unique perspective. And when we were in the COVID time, one of the things, the principles our media property is all about is serving people. And so here we are in the middle of this COVID thing, and we literally did kind of both go, this is what we got to do, because here's all this great information. Let's consolidate it and let's serve people and bring ideas that really they've taught us, the independent retailers. Kinsley and I are the guides, right? So people go to the podcast. We like to look at ourselves as the sleep industry guides. And so we just kind of get to walk with them. I mean, and take some of the best ideas. We're in a great position because we have the podcast, and now ideas come to us, and we get to disseminate those and share those and get people fired up and kind of do it our way. So that was really the inspiration. And it was such a fun thing to do. Kinsley and I the process of doing it together was a real blessing. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. And it seems as if, from the outside looking in, it seems as if maybe the worst time conceptually to write a book about foot traffic into brick and mortar retail stores is during a global pandemic, during a shutdown, during a time when people, I'm imagining when you decided to start this, people aren't even allowed to walk in stores, much less hesitant or afraid, or allowed in some places and not others. And so I wonder, this sort of makes me think about sort of the fate of retail, or maybe the fate of small business. And, you know, perhaps there's a correlation between books here and beds and small business. So how do you guys think about that? Because being in control of, you know, major brands in the industry, that brick and mortar has been something that has had its challenges of getting, to your point, getting the attention that it really needs to drive traffic in. And especially this, I mean, my time at Mega Group, before they merged with Nationwide, it was full of these conversations with these retailers about, hey, I've got 1, 2, maybe 3 locations. How do I compete with these massive, you know, companies with this, you know, perhaps private equity money, or they have all of these resources, and they don't necessarily have to get the same attention because they have money that'll do it for them. The same way, maybe people might think about independent publishers when they write a book. You know, how do I compete with the person who has a, you know, $500,000 marketing campaign for the book or the idea or the course that they have coming out? So how do you guys think about sort of the way that our world is becoming more and more digital? Is it still even plausible for an individual to think that they can get attention, that they can have a successful business, that they can start something? How do you guys think about that?
Well, let me anchor us in kind of a reality that I think was pretty stark. During the extreme shutdowns that were coast to coast in many places, people got to walk downtown in their communities and see what it looks like when independent retail disappears. We got to see a ghost town and what happens to your communities when the fabric and the flavor evaporates for a period of time. I don't think anybody liked it. And so to not have independent retail and to not have that hustle and bustle in that life, I think people hate it. You know, people are really suffering right now because the cadence of normal life has not returned. And so is it going to lead to innovation and change in the retail channel? 100%. And we talk about this really at the end of the book. You know, stores over time, whenever you have these institutions that disappear in large part, you know, our communities and especially larger cities are built around these institutions, whether they be government institutions or healthcare or colleges and universities. Those institutions are in place, and around them, you build up retail because you have foot traffic, you have people going there consistently. Well, what happens when that changes? Do you have to be more creative, and do you have to figure out ways to cut through the clutter? Yes, and you have to do it in a way that's much more aggressive than you previously thought you had to do. Yes, 100%. But I think that people understand what it looks like whenever these places disappear, and they are going to have to evolve and change. They're going to be more like a media channel where people first become exposed to a brand and then potentially go and buy online, and that's okay. But for the physical presence to completely go away, I don't think is in anybody's idea of what a community looks like.
No, and I would add to that, Doug, that the gosh, so my son plays Call of Duty, right? And okay, I play Call of Duty with him. It's a great thing to do for the both of us. But one of the things you can do in these video games is you get to pick your perks, right? So you can either be fast and agile, or you can have a gun that has more max damage to it, right? We all have, and it's the same for business if you look at it. You get to go in and you get to go to the menu and select, like, what are my superhero powers going to be? Kinsley and I use that term a lot. And for independent retailers, a lot of it is speed, it's agility, but the biggest one is connection to people. We talk about this a lot in the book. And when we talk about traffic generating ideas, the misconception might be that, hey, there's some good promotions, there's great sales that you can run, things like that. We talk about that as crack cocaine for our industry, because if you look at the retailers out there, like 90, I don't even know what the number is, 95%, 98% of the ads that are being run today are all based on that kind of hook. And the reality is, if you're playing long game for your business locally, it's more about, what do people think about your business? Number one, how do you arrive at that? How do you understand? There's three really important parts of that. How do I look at my business? Second part is, how do my people look at my business? Third part is, how does the consumer look at my business? And then the fourth and most important is, what is your vision cast of that? What do you really want to be? So you take all those first three ideas and then you say, okay, this is where we really want to go. So it's number one, understand who you are, and then start after a process of becoming who you want to be. And then when you do that, the cool thing is, when you start connecting people to your company, when they see the logo of your store come up on that television, what do they feel? Because we all know that people make decisions based on emotion, not based on logic. So if you can make them feel something by your business, and who is it that says it? I want to say it is Seth. No, it's get to the why. I'm trying to think. Simon very commonly says, Simon Sinek says, they'll believe when they know what you believe, then they will buy into that, and they'll believe what you believe, right? So they want to connect to who you are. What are your beliefs? What are your principles? And not just saying things like, we're a family-owned business. No, let's see the proof of that, right? And so how does that actually manifest itself in your company? So when you do that, when you connect them to who you are and they love you or they like you in a very strong way, you are not a place for people to conduct a transaction. You are a place that can give a great experience, or even possibly, if you're really lucky, a transformation. And then when they feel that from you, they favor you with their business and you become their preferred place to go. That is the end game.
Yeah, I love that. And I can remember it reminds me of some of the frustration that I faced when I was squarely in the bedding business, trying to help retailers get more attention and more loyalty from their customer base. And not just loyalty like repeat business, but loyalty like, when I come into the store, I have such a unique experience and such a human connection that I don't even finish doing the work of going 18 other places, and I can remember when I was training retail sales associates and talking about, like, hey, do you realize the benefit that you give a family that if you're the second or third stop of that Saturday, and you can help them by giving them this amazing experience of getting them exactly what they came in for, and they leave and they're done, and they don't have to go to 8 other places to try to dicker and negotiate and figure out, and then finish by going, man, that day was garbage, and I'm pretty sure that I paid too much. The blessing that you get to give them. And it reminds me of that the Seth Godin things that says, if the problem with a race to the bottom, talking about discounting and price being the only variable, the problem with the race to the bottom is that you might win. And when I can remember thinking about that a lot when I first heard it, and I developed this sort of structure for myself in terms of my pricing as the way I coach, the way I price my programs and my events, is I only have 2 prices. I have full price and I have free. If you can't afford full price and I don't have the capacity in my time inventory to give it away for free because there's a reason for me to do that, then I love you. We just can't do business together right now, and sort of that idea of, gosh, price being the primary attractor for, and look, I think this is I don't think anyone, even the people who are an employee of an organization, even large organizations, they would not go to their next promotion or their next interview and look at them and go, I would like to be the lowest cost provider for the skills that you're looking for in this role. You know what I mean? Like, whether you're a business or a person, no one wants to be the lowest cost provider. No one wants to be the discount option for services or a product. And so, why do you think we do that? Like, is it just because we're addicted, to your point, Quinn? Are we just addicted to the cocaine of discounting?
Well,
Go ahead, Kinsley.
Well, I'll tell you, this is addressed in the book, and maybe I'll tee you up here, Quinn, but the reason we do that is because when we go out and talk to retailers and try to figure out how to bring more foot traffic into their store, they invariably get hung up on not knowing who they are or how to properly position themselves as number one in a category in their marketplace. And really, we were going to write a book about driving foot traffic, and we realized, why aren't people doing this, and why do only certain businesses actually run with these foot traffic driving ideas? So many people don't want to head up to the top of the mountain with their trumpet because they don't really know who they are. They don't want to share their message because it feels incongruent. It feels disjointed. They don't have a brand. And so we quickly got into writing about a brand and what that actually means. Like, how do you actually develop a brand? Mission, vision, values, culture, brand, positioning, category of one. And let me bring it down to real times. There's a great book called The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing by Al Ries and Jack Trout. It's a famous book. It's been around a long time. And in the book, they talk about the core issue with business and marketing is positioning. And how do you find out how to create a category of one? And they tell this story about the first guy to fly over the Atlantic Ocean. It was Charles Lindbergh, the Spirit of St. Louis, very famous. So then he says, well, who was the second guy to fly across the Atlantic Ocean? This guy did it faster, with less fuel, just by all checkbox categories better. And nobody really knows who he is. But you all know that there wasn't a third person. There wasn't a third man because there was only the first woman, Amelia Earhart. She created her own category so she could become first. Because believe me, nobody knows the second guy, his name, by the way, Bert Hinkler. Nobody cares. You have to be first in your category or create a new category where you can be number one, or people don't feel confident to go out and do these things.
What I would add to that, and Kinsley, I love that story, and it's so true. What I would add to that is people who are product price and promotion driven, Doug, I think it's because it's the easier path, right? And so I saw something recently, and I can't get off of it. It's pick your hard, right? So it's hard to create products, low cost manufacturing, drive every cost center out of your product and business, and go to market with the cheapest possible solution and make low margin but on velocity, right? So that's not easy to do. That's hard. But you know what else is hard? It's hard to build a brand, communicate your brand, connect people to the emotion that you that makes you who you are, build value in everything you do. And so we're not saying to people, stop advertising, product, price, and promotion. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is add some dimension to what you do and stop just doing that part, because you can build value in your people. You can build value in the process that you sell and deliver products in. You can develop value into the category in general. There's so many things that you can do to create value and tell your story, that when you do that, that's the beautiful part, because you are playing long game there. You know, a transaction is a quick hit and they're going to come back. And then if you're not in the market with the sale the next time, forget it, man. They're moving on to the next guy. And so we really try to pound the fact that build value in every single part of every single thing that you do.
And do we eat what we're cooking? Yes, we do. We are the galaxy's greatest mattress industry podcast. And trust me, that is a category of, in the beginning, it was a category 1. There are a few others out there, but trust me, we're the greatest mattress industry podcast on the planet. And we knew that we could own that category. And who would have thought that it had 185 episodes of mileage in it? Who would have thought it would lead to a book? Who would have thought that people would want to sponsor our podcast? And we have more sponsorships coming our way than we have inventory to sell. Because we chose a niche, we chose to focus on who we were, we chose to serve an audience, and it works. And I'm telling you, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a coach, if you're a therapist, you need to do the work of becoming the owner of a category. If you're a jewelry store, I would go to market with all we do is engagement rings. That's it. If you're a therapist, go to market with I am the LGBTQ and whatever other letters go with that these days. That's the niche that I'm going to own. And that's what's going to set you apart. It doesn't actually hem you in as much as it gives you freedom to be creative within those boundaries you've given yourself.
100%. And you know, I would say that's something that's worked really well for me. I have gone all in on the mentorship thing, you know, and like in early in, as I was sort of developing my practice, it was like, hey, I do relationships and mentorship and leadership and all the ships, you know, like all of them, like and I would find myself saying to people, what is it you need? And I found this Henry Ford quote once that said, if I would have asked people what they needed, they would have asked for faster horses.
Yes.
You know? And so sometimes the best way to find out what people need is to show up and be what you're best at, and you will attract the people that need you the most. And I think it's so easy, and maybe this is part of it. It's so easy to be the critic. You know, it like before I had my book in my hand, any book that I had ever picked up, and we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, any book that I had ever picked up, I didn't really have it didn't mean anything to me personally when I opened it, because I was there to evaluate the book. I was there to go, does this work? Do I agree with this? Do I believe with this? Is this something that I want to do? But when I picked up my book and held it in my hands for the first time, Quinn, when you asked me how it felt, I was like, well, 8 seconds. It was like this ecstasy of accomplishment. And like, I've finally done this thing that I've wanted to do. And then after that 8 seconds was followed by 3 days of imposter syndrome, to go like, holy hell. Now people are going to like read this and they're going to evaluate this, because now I have laid myself out to bear on this, in these pages. And so now this is something that can be criticized. And I think in order to do what you're asking people to do, Mark, is you have to be willing to be criticized. You have to be willing to put yourself out there and go, this is what I'm about. This is who I am. And perhaps for small business owners that want so badly to be successful and to provide for their family and to not fail, perhaps the hardest thing to do is to go, here's who I am. This is what I'm about, and not hedge with, what is it you want, or how cheaply can I get you what I think you're asking for?
It's so true. I mean, if you, we talk about this story a lot, but if you're standing on the shore and you're in a harbor and a ship pulls up and it's a big tall ship and a bunch of yahoos on board start hoisting up this flag, and there it is, skull and crossbones, it's Jolly Roger. You're like, oh my gosh. Like, and all the people are standing there watching, and a lot of them are going to run. They're going to run because it's the pirates have arrived. Unless you're a pirate, then you go get on that ship. Your people are there. They flew their flag high. There's my ship. So when you do that in your business and you are unashamedly who you are and specific about it, not vague, specific and vivid, so people with clarity in their mind know exactly who you are and what you stand for, you will attract the right people, and you will save yourself a hell of a lot of time by repelling the people you should have no business engaging with or doing business with in the first place.
You know what? To add to what Kinsley's saying there, Doug, in the book, we say if you want to capture Bigfoot traffic. So, by the way, back to that story of us being rappers, Bigfoot was on the stage because the very opening joke for that whole presentation was me saying to Kinsley, love it, but what's up with Bigfoot? Why is there a Bigfoot on the stage with us? He said, you told me the name of the speech was how to capture Bigfoot traffic. And I go, no, Bigfoot traffic. What is, so anyway, it's the cheap joke, but anyway, in order to capture Bigfoot traffic, you have to have a cage, right? And so a lot of independent businesses out there just really don't know how to go at the public. Like when I used to write my blog, Kinsley was always telling me, Quinn, share personal anecdotes, share personal parts of your life and your story, because people connect to you that way. And it's hard, right? If you're creating content, because you want to make it about the business and that kind of stuff. And I was always reluctant to do that. But it's the same thing for a business, right? So capturing it with a cage. So talk about the things, that you're doing in your community, right? So how are you serving or helping improve things in your local town? Think about the answers that you're giving people. So Jeff Shire with Beducator is one of the great examples of that, where his whole YouTube channel is about answering every question he could ever think of for a consumer getting into the market to buy a mattress. G is, what kind of giving are you doing? Like, what kind of charities do you support? And then E is for the experiences. Like, what kind of experiences are you creating in your store? So if you can like just make a list of those things as an independent business and go, okay, here's some cool stuff we're doing. Maybe we talk about that. And then maybe people who share the same concerns or beliefs, they'll come onto our pirate ship. And now we're building our tribe of people. And that's the connection that is so critically important to get out of the transaction business and get into the transformation business.
Yeah, this reminds me. I was on a coaching call with a client just last week, and we were talking about the same exact thing for her business. So, and we ended up talking about how hard it can be if we veil it to find people that are the same flavor of weird as we are, And so when we made that like okay, like because she kept going, yeah, but I think some people will think it's weird. And it's like, okay, so who won't think it's weird? Well, probably the people that will buy your thing. You know what I mean? And so we use the picture of juice, right? So if you say to me like, hey man, you want some juice? My first question is going to be, oh, what type of juice? Because if it's orange juice, I'm probably in. If it's prune juice, I'm probably not in. But there is someone that would go, hey, yeah, I would like that type of juice, right? And so being clear instead of the nebulous of like, hey, I've got juice, because everyone has mattresses, everyone has a service, everyone has a product, but it's like, and what kind? Because, for me, I connect more with the brand than I do the product in the beginning. I get an ad on social media when I'm flipping through it. But if it attracts me to what I perceive to be my aesthetic, then I'm more likely to watch the first 4 seconds of the video to give them a shot instead of going, that's not for me, so I'll keep going. Right. And so I wonder, so you just gave us the capture thing, Quinn. I also know that
Yeah. Before we move past that, Doug, I just want to ask, I want to ask you both a question. Do you guys remember the Dollar Shave Club, the very first YouTube video they
oh,
did?
yes, yes.
Do you remember it, Kinsley? So it was like, for me, that was like this epiphany in a way, because think about this, guys. Think about companies that we've worked for. Doug, ask you first. Could you have ever taken that to one of the big companies you worked with, Kinsley, same for you, and said, hey, this is a video that we want to produce. What do you think? And they would have said, you freaking lost your damn mind. There is no way. We can't get away with that. We're like hinting at the F-bomb and right? And the guy, and just irreverent is, and he put his stuff out because that's who he was.
Yeah, I can remember my grandfather used to have this saying. He would say, you can do anything once. You know, like if you want to rob a bank, you do it once. You know what I mean? Like if you want to like walk up and punch the biggest dude in the room, you can do that once. And that's one of those things that like, I feel like for some of the brands that I've worked for, I could do that. I could take that Dollar Shave Club commercial concept to them once. And then I would be applying my creativity to my my resume. Yeah. Kinsley, what about you?
Dude, I remember seeing that video and thinking the same thing Quinn thought. If it was a big company, it would cannibalize all of our business. We can't trash our own products.
Yeah.
And here it was, somebody calling an industry out on all the bad parts of it that were completely annoying, that everybody would think if they were forced to consciously put down on paper their hate list. But you don't sit there and think about razors or any other category in that way. But somebody reflected what was in our hearts and held up a mirror to us. And we said, yes, I relate to that. I will give you my money. And I give them my money to this day. And look, and here's what Dollar Shave Club, I think, does well now, even though they sold. They realized that they needed to continue to reflect what was in people's hearts. And they needed to be these guides and these transformation agents. And I think that's what kind of where my head goes when I think about all of these swirling topics around business and where things eventually move. And Quinn and I just gave this speech. We were thankful and grateful to be the headline keynote speech at Nationwide Primetime's first ever virtual primetime event. So last year it was an astronaut. So naturally this year was two mattress podcasters. But it's a logical transition. But in our speech, we talked about this idea of moving into the transformation economy. We've talked a ton about the experience economy, but in the transformation economy, people are actually going to want products to help them become a better person or help them move along a journey toward a path or along a path toward an outcome. And you're like, if I'm imagining this audience, entrepreneurs, coaches, therapists, people that are helping guide other people, you are so far ahead of regular business just by virtue of the chops and the skills and the industry that you're in. You can apply it to almost any arena. Because think about our business. I'm going to merge it with like a coach. So we're in the sleep industry. Sleep needs to be the third leg of the health stool. It really does. Nutrition, fitness, sleep, they all need to work together. So now in the future, when people come in to buy a mattress, that is the beginning of the relationship. That's not the end of it. It's not a transaction where I hand you a big white rectangle and I say, good luck. That should start the relationship and lead to a coaching mechanism that actually helps people get better sleep. It's very similar to, we talk about in the speech, we talked about the smoking cessation business. They used to like give people the gum, say, chew it and stop ripping cigs.
Right.
Well, that was very low. It was a very low outcome in terms of success. Like 25% of people would actually be able to quit smoking. So they brought on these transformation guides and they had a lot of upfront calls with them. And they had people basically self-select out if you weren't going to be committed to this process, got rid of the bad clients. And then they helped them with postcards and text messages and emails and calls, coaching. It was all coaching along the way to help them realize this transformation that they actually wanted. That applied to products across the world in almost every vertical, I think is where we're headed.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I think sometimes we forget that it's really not about us. You know, like if when we're building a brand, it's not about our story. It's about how our story is translated by the person who's on the other end of that communication. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine who happens to be a young man who is just like, you know how you meet people sometimes and you're like, man, that kid is going to be really, really successful no matter what they do. Like there's just something about their energy, their enthusiasm, their intelligence, whatever it is. And so I was having this conversation because he has a desire to be a coach. And he's like, yeah, but I'm 20. Like, who do I coach? Like, I can't coach an executive. I've never had a real career yet. And I remember asking him, so who could you coach? And it turns out that like there are a lot of college students and high school students that need that level of coaching. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought like, when I get engaged to be someone's coach, the less I know about how to do what they do, sometimes the better, because it causes me to need to lean on my creativity, to ask more questions, to let them be the person who guides the technical side, and then I just get to come in and be the curious person. And it's there's a sense of, I think there's a sense of complexity that people have that we take for granted. There's some things for me, and I think we probably all find these things. There's some things for me that it's like, I want the most premium product. Like I'm a obnoxiously so I'm a bit of a sneakerhead, right? So I have no problem spending a unreasonable amount of money on a pair of sneakers. But the t-shirts that I wear, I'm like, if it's $22, it's too much. You know what I mean? So like, I don't want to spend a lot of money in certain areas, but I'm willing to spend an ultra premium in other areas. And I think what we try to do is we try to make people into these boxes and go, oh, because they would buy this, they wouldn't buy that. It's like, because they drive I don't know, a Kia or a budget car, they're not going to buy a premium mattress. Or because they live in this sort of a neighborhood, they're not going to pay for this sort of service, instead of going, hey, let me hoist my flag, to Kinsley, to your pirate analogy, and let's attract. And that's really the whole purpose of, that's the point of my book, is to go, hey, if you have these attitudes and these perspectives, these principles, and then you apply action to them, you don't have to go out and find a mentor. A mentor will be attracted to you. And I think there's a lot of correlation between what I'm advising people to do based on my experience versus what you two are advising businesses to do to attract attention, traffic, loyalty, and things like that. And I wonder, there's also this huge trend right now of minimalism, especially over the last couple of years. This has been something this sort of come up, that's been important to people. And people, I think there's a trend that are having less or buying, are in theory, or are wanting to buy fewer things. And so maybe the markets are shrinking a little bit in terms of what people will buy. And so attention now is more important than ever. And I think the term that I like the most is essentialism. Because that's really ultimately what minimalism is. It's not about having less stuff. It's more about only having the things that you want and need the most, right? And so as you think about the book and how you are doing this yourselves, but also advising other people through the book, we mentioned things like the hatch method that we talked about in the before we started recording, and also the galaxy graph. Could you talk about a few of those things and perhaps how they relate to helping businesses help people identify the things that are actually essential, and not just buying things to try to sell them things, or
Yeah.
get buy it for, just because.
What's essential, I think, today for anybody in business is creative thinking. And a lot of people think, well, I'm not creative. Well, I'm going to go spiritual on you for just a moment, if you don't mind. But in the Bible, it says we were created in the image of God. And who is God? He's the creator So if you were created in the image of the creator, you should do what? Create some stuff, right? We are creative people at our core. And we think it's so essential that, like any uh, marginal business book, we came up with a way to take, number one, to generate ideas so you can extract your creativity and surface it. Because some people, it's a skill. It's something that you can cultivate and get better at. But then you need to go from getting the ideas out to selecting the ideas to putting them into action. And so I'm holding this up on the screen, but we're sending out a bookmark with a bunch of our books, and it's called How to Hatch Brilliant Ideas. And HATCH is an acronym for hold a brainstorm, act crazy, take a nap, choose ideas, hand off to the creative team. But I'm going to only talk about one of those items on here, and it's the brainstorm. Hold a brainstorm. So we saw this in big companies over and over and over again. I don't care what business you're in, this is going to be useful. What would happen is people would start in and say that we're going to have a brainstorm, and immediately Ted from accounting would just start shitting on ideas. And we're like, wait a minute.
Ted's an asshole.
Freaking Ted.
So
Hey,
we're
Ted.
like, pause button. Okay, how do you actually hold a brainstorm, and what is it designed to do? And so you set expectations from the very beginning, and you say, we're going to have a brainstorm, and the point is volume of ideas. So we want as many ideas as possible, and we're not going to shut down or select ideas. That's for tomorrow. The only goal is as many ideas as possible. We're going to build on each other's ideas. So volume of ideas, and how do you build on each other's ideas so you don't shut them down? And what we recommend is what comedians do. If we are all three on stage putting on some sort of comedic stage play, which this is not too far from, we would say yes and. So Doug would come up with a scenario and say, Bigfoot walks out on stage at a Mattress speech. Yes, and his handler is holding beef jerky. Yes, and two guys bust out of the back dressed as rappers. So that's the ideal scenario. But what ends up happening most of the time is you say, Bigfoot walks out on stage, and somebody goes, no. Like, we don't want to look like idiots. And immediately the momentum shuts down, power switch off, and everybody goes into a dark place and nobody wants to contribute. And meanwhile, Sheena from HR is sitting over on the silence. She's really quiet, but she's got all kinds of ideas, but she doesn't have the space to get them out into the open. If you build on each other's ideas, here's what's going to happen. You're going to get volume of ideas, and there's going to be a special magical moment. It happens in every good brainstorm. It's going to get wacky and silly and ridiculous. And when you see that happen as a facilitator, just know on the other side is the gold, because you're starting to push past everything that's obvious. And when you get past things that are obvious, you're starting to get to something that's surprising. And that's what grabs attention. And surprise is the foundation of delight. And that's where your gold's going to be. So if you can figure out how to facilitate and properly lead a brainstorm, that's going to lead to creative thinking that you can make into outputs.
So here's some good news for everyone listening to this. You don't have to do anything Kinsley just said at all. You can stay the course and stay in your groove. If you think that staying the course and being exactly who you are is going to get you somewhere towards the future, if you're doing the stuff that we talked about. Here's the thing though. One of the other concepts of the book is you have to decide to do it differently. So if you decide to do it differently, so yes, I am doing fine and I want to be better and I want to grow and I want to accomplish more with my business, you have to make a decision and you have to have action towards that. So that's why that creative session the hatch method is so critically important, because even if you don't have creative people in your company, that's okay. Bring someone in from the outside. If Ted from accounting wants to join, don't invite Ted from accounting. And by the way, we say this very strongly. If your CEO is the asshole, if he is the Ted, he doesn't get to come, because that whole thing kills the entire process. And so when you decide to do it differently, there are people who say the IQ, a lot of HR things I've been reading lately, IQ is way less important than EQ. So intelligence versus emotional quotient, right? You really got to understand that part. And I think a lot of that comes with the creative session. But if you come up with those ideas and you're always testing new concepts, and by the way, be very, very careful if your brand isn't to ride around on an elephant and scream sale at people on a used car lot. Don't do that, right? There's plenty of ways for you to bring your personality and your company and your mission to life, to your market, to your people, with creative ideas, but stay within yourself. Be an authentic version of who you are, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that one of the ways to uncover some of this that we're asking people to uncover is to just suspend belief about who you are long enough to go discover a little bit, because so often, this is what I find as a coach, is that people have decided who they are and what they are and what they're like, instead of going, hey, maybe that time my third grade teacher criticized my art and said that I wasn't creative. Maybe she was wrong. Right? Maybe I am a bit more creative than, they said I was, or that I've, because it's incredible that when people, as I've done coaching or facilitation, that report the greatest transformation, it's not because I taught them anything. It's because they suspended belief long enough to just reevaluate what their belief was about who they were. And one of the ways that you can do that is by reading things and being involved in conversations that you are not used to or that don't seem obvious. So as an example, one of the books that I read last year that was really impactful on my life was a book called The Inner Game of Tennis by Timothy Galloway. I don't play tennis. I've never played tennis. I don't watch tennis. I don't care about tennis. But Timothy Galloway found something as a tennis coach that helped him to help people to unlock, to get unstuck. And this book was like unbelievable for me. So for those who are listening to this that would go, well, I'm not in the mattress or furniture business, I don't have a brick and mortar retail store, that's the exact reason that maybe you should read this book. Because even though I'm not in the industry per se anymore, I can't wait to read this book, because even some of the stuff that you've mentioned, this is foundational from a principle standpoint for any business, any solopreneur, entrepreneur. And I also think that it works for those who are trying to build a personal brand. And for two people like you that I look up to so much and respect so much, and the brands that you've created for yourselves in an industry that's so tight knit, and oftentimes it can be quite, anytime that an industry is tight knit, like the furniture mattress industry, it can also be a bit unforgiving if you slip up or if you make a mistake. And the impeccable brand and reputation that the two of you have are definitely respectable, commendable, and it's just another reason why I can't wait to get my hands on this book. So I'll link everything down in the description, and how people can get in contact with you, and also how they can get the book, Come Back to Bed, which, if for no other reason, the title seems really incredibly interesting.
Well, and on top of that, if you're seeing this on camera, that we have two indestructible Dos Marcos tequila shot glasses that go out to our first 100 orders through our site. You got to buy direct from us. And Dos Marcos, tequila is the official beverage of our podcast. And we are known for taking tequila shots during speeches that we give. And we're like, you know what? We should have shot glasses for people. That way we can celebrate life together. You can go out and find your co-host, and you can be sure to always have an extra on hand for your friends. And our official toast is, here's to great sleep and living your best life.
So I can't think of a better way to end than like this. Buy the book, give yourself a shot. Ooh, I like that so much. And whatever you do, do not be Bert Hinkler.